Welcome, fellow travelers. It's Mickey Gold. I wanted to talk about dealing with trauma when you have anxiety or panic disorder or panic attacks or PTSD. Now, we've talked about panic attacks before, and if you are somebody who does have anxiety or does have panic attacks, our body has done over and over again patterned itself to when the chemicals from the flight or fight response happen, we get we get this dousing of chemicals because this is meant for to literally fight someone off or flee or pick up stuff or whatever emergency. It's meant so that we can almost have superhuman strength for just a short while. Our body's not meant to run on these chemicals because these chemicals go through our system and they cause havoc. Because what's happening is only the things we need for survival are turned on. So, for instance, when you get into that place, your hindbrain is now turned on, and we've talked about this before. Your reptilian brain is turned on, and you are not going to make the wisest decisions. So if you've had panic attacks bad enough where it sent you to the emergency room, you know what I mean. Because the thing is because of the chemicals going through you, panic attacks, because we haven't got to get rid of those chemicals, panic attacks really can mimic symptoms of heart attacks, strokes, depending on what you're most worried about happening to you, and it's like sometimes it's like, I'm only this old and this is probably not this, and I have a really healthy heart, and like, however, none of that stuff matters all of a sudden once you get into that, once you have those chemicals dumping into your body. So, what we need to do, if you are having a full-blown panic attack, go to the 4-7-8 breath first. So like if you can't even get to the rest of the stuff, go 4-7-8. Inhale 4, hold 7, exhale 8. If that's all you can do, go for that first. Sorry, I didn't get that to you very first. Now, if you can make it to dropping roots from either your feet or your seat, this is where we're going next. So, if you can, go outside. Because actually, a lot of times with panic attacks, if you can change the room you're in, much like if you've ever been around somebody who's ever freaked out on marijuana, a lot of times if you take them into a different room or a different location, that calms them down. Just FYI, because I live in a legal state. So, so if you have someone who ate an edible and you're like, oh man, this person's freaking, put them out, help them go someplace. Now, so the same type of principles apply. You can go outside. Sometimes just going outside, getting that fresh air can be great. So, but the reason we're going outside is we are going to try to ground. Now, and depending on where you live, I mean, I know it's January, so some parts of the country, you can't go outside right now, it's snowing. I have rocks all around my house and blacktop. So I don't really have a spot that I can put my feet. So if you can't find, sand, dirt, or grass, then, you can stay inside and you can either ground from your feet or your seat. So feet or seat, doesn't matter. What I want you to do is I want you to envision or imagine roots dropping down to the earth. Because when we've had a trauma, what happens is we feel ungrounded. Our root chakra, our base chakra, is what deals with basically that whole flight or fight survival mode. So you are in serious survival mode, and that root chakra is our survival. And when you don't feel like you're safe, when you don't have that basic survival, when you don't feel like you're going to survive, that you can't feel good. You can't bring yourself to the next level. You can't take yourself out of the panic attack. So what we do is just drop those roots. And then I want you to decide. One side is for releasing all the stuff you don't want from your body, those chemicals. And the other side is for bringing up from the earth what you do want. And you can imagine this happening like as you exhale, releasing. As you inhale, bringing up. Or vice versa. It works that way for me. So exhale is letting go in my mind. But it might work differently for you. So when we're doing this, when I'm saying on your exhale, we're not forcing our exhale at this point. We're not forcing inhale either. You're just mentally visioning this occurring. And we're just noticing our breath. Because if you're not fully, panicking, notice the breath. You can do stuff like, for instance, bring the hands to the chest above the breast in the bony area. And you can just let yourself breathe and notice, does the chest move? Or is it tight? And if it's tight, you can go ahead and just imagine the muscles underneath softening, lower than your hands softening. You got muscles going here. Imagine those softening, and just imagine this area being able to open up and take in that breath. And then we go to our ribs. And we just take the either hands this way or this way on the side of our ribs, and just noticing the ribs expanding and contract, kind of like you're playing an accordion. And again, just imagine softening that whole area in and around the muscles that's around your ribs, because you actually have a bunch of muscles that are in between your ribs. And then bring your hands to your belly, and then feel the belly expand and contract as well, and relaxing anything that is not letting that breath in. And then you can, without your hands, focus on coming into the air coming into the chest, the ribs, the belly. And as that's happening, again, dropping down those roots, letting that exhale, releasing what you don't need, inhale, bringing up what you do need. So as that's going on, just notice what comes to your mind. And this is a time too, like, for instance, if you want to then start on the 4, 7, 8 breaths, or if you wanted to do just 4, 4 breaths, so 4 inhale, 4 hold, 4 exhale, whatever works for you. You can do deep breathing. There's a lot of different breath work to do. You want to stick with calm stuff. This is not the time to do bellows breath or skull shining, and because those are very forced inhale, exhale, and like the Wim Hof has now made some of these popular, but you don't want to go there. You want to breathe in a way that doesn't make you, because some people have breathing freaks them out. Focusing on the breath freaks them out. And if you're one of those people, again, you can skip that. You can, pick and choose what you need. Because sometimes you might start one thing, or just even think about it, and you're good. Sometimes none of it works. Sometimes we can try new things. Now, so once you've got that going, once you are kind of more centered, then let whatever comes up, come up. Not judging. Imagine yourself standing there, arms wide open, embracing whatever comes up. If you feel scared, that's okay. I want to feel it. I accept this. I love you. Whatever the case may be, whatever you can. Because let me tell you, when you invite a feeling in, when you embrace it, when you tell it, sure, bring it on, a lot of times it doesn't show up, or it doesn't show up quite as bad. And if you keep doing it again and again, and you keep embracing, and you keep being okay with whatever happens, because a lot of times what one might notice is that as you're breathing, as you're releasing, you might have less and less intensity of feelings. And when we don't make feelings wrong, because for instance, if you're watching on Wednesday and you were crying and you were sad and you felt like you were violated, that's okay to feel. If you were angry, if you were yelling at the TV, if you were like, how dare you, that's okay. If you wanted to go over and kick somebody's rear end, that's okay. You're allowed to feel that. Because if we let it come, if we accept it, we open our arms to it, we're not ashamed and we're not afraid. Because who you are inside, you can have any thought you want. And you don't have to act on it. And when it's okay to have any thought you want, those thoughts stop coming. Like I said, if you say, sure, I accept it all, and you accept it all. I remember one time having a major panic attack before I learned the 4, 7, 8, and just laid on the floor and said, okay, take me, I'm ready, because my mind always tells me, something's wrong, oh my gosh, so it was like, fine. And I laid there, I felt like, oh, this is so scary. And then eventually it was like, where are you? Waiting for the Grim Reaper. Not here. So when we accept and we make it okay, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be whatever you are and whoever you are. Because when we push those feelings away, when we say, that's not a spiritual feeling, I should be love and light. And no, you shouldn't. Not if you don't feel it. Don't pretend yourself more enlightened than you are. We don't want to pretend ourselves into health. This is not only we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So, these are lessons to learn. And, some of them are hard. However, when we work through it, it gets easier and easier each time. Now, big gigantic traumas like what happened Wednesday are not easy. So even once you get through the initial, after that, the aftercare, after you've moved through the basic center yourself, ground yourself, breathe, let it come, open those arms. After that, do what your body needs. If you need to eat a little more, if you need to sleep a little more, I say this whether it's retrograde, whether it's whatever the case is, when we're kind and loving to our bodies, if we listen to our bodies, let me tell you, I have been a trainer for over 20 years. I have worked in the fitness industry my whole entire adult life. If you count dance, I started working at 14, teaching. So that's a long time. And quite a few years of that were heavy duty eating disorders. I was never overweight. It was usually under, and starving myself and depriving myself. Once I started learning to love myself, which took a lot of work, way longer than it should have. I mean, I was teaching, I was training, this is relatively new where I'm not punishing myself. I would literally write down everything I ate, even if it was a stick of gum. I'd be looking at the package and go, there's 5 calories. I would be writing down everything I ate, the calories, restricted myself, restricted my fat intake, all sorts of things, and my body. So what would happen is I would restrict these things and my body would be like, I need it. So what I learned is that when I learned to let my body have what it needs instead of fighting it, then I stopped being interested in when it's like, there was no bad, I am vegan and I'm gluten-free, but even when I became gluten-free, I let myself every once in a while have stuff because I'd be like, I miss sourdough bread. And then I eat it and I would have horrible feeling. It would just not be helpful. It would make me foggy. It would cause stomach issues. Sometimes I kind of get rashy in certain places too. So there were some issues, and after a while it's like, yeah, I liked it, but if it's gonna do this isn't that tasty. And they've come out with some interesting, like, cauliflower pizza crust and all that stuff. It's quite tasty actually. So I actually don't miss that, and I just eat more of a fresh thing, and I listen to my body. If my body says, I want this, it's like, okay, and that's learning to communicate, and that's learning to hold your arms out and say whatever. So when we, after moments of trauma and even if just after a panic attack, having those, trusting our body, saying, I will take care of you, friend. I got your back. And learning that it's got your back and you're connected to the earth. How much more protection could you possibly have? The earth itself is taking away the stuff you no longer need and bringing to you the stuff you want. So let yourself eat. Let yourself sleep. Let yourself watch what you want. Give yourself limits though too. So here's the thing, don't, binge eat for weeks. Give yourself those moments. Let yourself know, like, okay, like for instance, when a trauma happens, if you want the first day to watch news, like from the moment that your eyes glean on this till you can't stay awake anymore, go for it. If you can't even deal and you want to go watch Little Mermaid, whatever the case is, do that. Listen to yourself. Again, It's okay. You're actually like I said, having these panic attacks actually brings us closer to ourselves, lets us understand stuff. And then when we get to this where we've kind of nurtured and loved ourselves and given us the things that like that would be loving, like a loving mother or grandmother might do for somebody that comforts you. Find things that comfort you. Try to find the healthiest things you can, but find things that comfort you. And be okay with, maybe I'm drinking a little too much right now, but although I don't necessarily suggest alcohol, because usually alcohol doesn't really mix super well if you have anxiety issues. It's one of the not helpful things. So, but what I'm saying is be okay with where you are after trauma, because when we don't need to traumatize ourselves more. And just slowly start paying attention to yourself, like, and be okay with sometimes you feel better and then you don't feel better. There's forward back movement. What we need to remember too is to get a diagnosis of PTSD, it has to be 4 weeks after the initial trauma happens. So if we can, in that 4 weeks, really undo this, we won't end up with trauma, even if you can just take a little bit of the edge off. And it doesn't necessarily, you may or may not have been affected by Wednesday, like I said, but anytime, because you might lose somebody, you might, whatever the case may be, when we have trauma, that this self-care, especially, like I said, for some of us who are super sensitive to things, it's really important, again, to love, care, and honor for this wonderful body that's taking you around every place you need to go. And your body is perfect. Even if you're ill, even if you don't have all your parts, your body is perfect for you. If we love it and we treat it well, we listen to it, we listen to our guidance, our higher self, God, whatever you want to call it. Take care of ourselves, love ourselves. Because I would venture to guess with myself that if I was not so hard on myself and I didn't grow up with treating myself, people treating me badly and then me treating myself badly, that chances are, and the trauma that I've endured early on in life, chances are I probably wouldn't have anxiety. If when we're loved, when we're taken care of, what's there to be anxious about? If we're grounded, we're rooted, there's nothing to be anxious about. So, hey, I'm 45 years old and it's taking me this long to be okay with myself. So even if you're 75, 85, it's never too late to take care of yourself. It's never too late to be okay in the moments that we feel like we can't be okay. And maybe we can be more okay than every other person out there because we learn to deal with this. So like I said, for instance, practice grounding every day. Practice, the breath. Practice tuning into your body. Practice getting up in the morning and asking your body, hey, what would be the healthiest, best, the most helpful thing I could put in my body first thing? Really, or what do you need? Because sometimes we're imbalanced and we need stuff. Really get in touch with you. Really get grounded. You're worth it. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys feel good and are able to come to a place where our bodies are not our enemy and that we can feel balanced and we can feel good and energized. So I am going to be doing some studying and reading on the polyvagal response. And I may have some new stuff for anxiety and trauma coming up in the next couple weeks. So there may be stuff added to this, but as far as it goes, this is basically the scaled down version of what I do. Because like I've mentioned before, I have a whole tool bag of things that I use when anxiety comes up. And for instance, on Wednesday, I, did the grounding, and then I did a whole bunch of other things because when when you work with this stuff, other things come up and you can play with it. I know it sounds really odd to say, oh yeah, play with while you're having a panic attack, but seriously, sometimes things work all the time and then sometimes they don't, so it's good to have other ideas and good to check out what other people have to say, because everybody's different and we all resonate differently. So I will see you guys next time. Peace, love, namaste.